One king who fears no one, one warrior who fears nothing, and one woman caught in the middle of a war that burned an entire city to the ground. This is the story of Troy, where love starts a war that kills a legend, betrayal turns brothers against each other, and the greatest fighter who ever lived gets taken down by the one thing he could never protect. Stick around, because the ending of this one is gonna hit you right in the chest. So picture this. We kick things off with Agamemnon, this insanely powerful king, straight up marching his army into another kingdom's territory like he owns the place. The local king rolls up with his own troops and tells him to back off, but Agamemnon's like, nah, I actually want you to fight for me. The king argues you can't conquer the whole world, and Agamemnon claps back that plenty of kings said that exact thing, and now they all fight under him anyway. So he proposes they settle it old school. Each side sends their best warrior, winner takes it all. If his guy loses, he packs up and leaves by morning. If his guy wins, the king keeps his kingdom, but has to show up with troops whenever Agamemnon calls. The king agrees and calls out his champion, some 8-foot-tall absolute unit named Boagrius. Agamemnon yells for his guy, Achilles, and nobody shows up, which gets the enemy commanders cracking up laughing. Turns out Achilles isn't even with the army. A scout finds him totally chilling, passed out asleep with 2 girls like he doesn't have a care in the world. This role is played by Brad Pitt, by the way, and he absolutely kills it. Achilles finally strolls in, Agamemnon threatens him with a whipping for the disrespect, and Achilles just says, fine, go fight your own battle then, and starts walking off. The other king stops him, saying he could save thousands of lives if he fights, since it'd settle the whole war right there. Quick context. Agamemnon is stupidly powerful, commands a bunch of vassal kings who have to show up when summoned, and Achilles lives under his rule too, but doesn't fear him one bit. There's serious bad blood between them. Achilles fights only when he feels like it, and honestly Agamemnon both hates and fears him. Achilles turns to the king and says, imagine how wild it'd be if kings actually fought their own battles, then goes and wrecks the giant warrior in one hit. He turns to the army and yells, anyone else? And nobody dares step up. The king tries to hand him his royal seal to give to his own king, but Achilles flat out says that's not my king, and dips. Now here's why the movie's called Troy, because the Trojan War is legendary. Troy's this massive kingdom ruled by a king with 2 sons, Hector and Paris. Hector's a legit great warrior, just like Achilles, famous everywhere. Both princes are visiting Sparta since the 2 kingdoms, after years of fighting, are trying to patch things up, and the Spartans are treating them like honored guests. Sparta's king happens to be Agamemnon's younger brother, and his wife Helen is famous for being ridiculously beautiful. Paris and Helen fall for each other, and when the brothers are heading home the next day, Paris secretly smuggles Helen onto his ship and admits it to Hector mid-voyage. Hector loses it, because he knows exactly how bad this is going to get. Tells him to turn the ship around and drop her off, since he doesn't want a war wiping out thousands of innocent people over his brother's stupid decision. Paris says if she goes back, he's staying too. Hector warns they'll kill him, but Paris says he can't live without her and isn't scared of dying. Hector caves and brings Helen back to Troy anyway. Meanwhile, Agamemnon's brother comes to him saying this isn't just an insult to him but to all of Greece, and asks for backup to invade. Agamemnon says yes immediately because he's been dying for an excuse to take Troy for years, and this is the perfect setup. Interesting twist though. Achilles wants nothing to do with this war because he refuses to fight for Agamemnon. That night, Agamemnon's advisor tells him they desperately need Achilles for this, but Agamemnon says the guy can't be controlled. He'd probably just fight against them instead. Agamemnon's basically a straight-up nasty, ruthless king. His advisor convinces him this'll be the biggest war ever, and they need Achilles, a born killer. So Agamemnon sends another king to convince him. That king says, they disrespected us. And Achilles says, nah, they disrespected one guy, not me. The king tells him this war will make warriors' names live on for centuries, and deep down Achilles wants exactly that, immortality through legend. But he doesn't answer. That same day, Achilles visits his mother, who's said to be a goddess. Quick backstory. When he was born, she dipped him by the heel into a sacred river, making his entire body immortal, except for that one heel spot where she held him, his only weak point. She tells him everyone wants him to go to war, but if he stays with her instead, he'll get a beautiful wife, kids, grandkids, everyone loving him, but his name will fade with time. If he goes to war, his name lives forever, but he'll never come back and she'll never see him again. He asks if that's really how it'll go, and she confirms it because she knows for certain he won't survive. Still, Achilles decides to go to war and gets ready, and thousands of ships set sail for Troy. Meanwhile, Hector gets home and tells his dad they should send Helen back. But his dad says the two are truly in love, and he's seen it change Paris. Hector says they can't watch all of Troy burn for his brother's romance, and warns that Helen's husband Menelaus is probably already with Agamemnon. who's been waiting years for an excuse to crush them, and if they attack, winning is basically impossible. His dad reassures him Troy's walls are so high, nobody's ever breached them, which is true. Hector's a genuinely good guy who doesn't want all of Troy paying for his brother's mistake. As Agamemnon's massive fleet approaches Troy, he notices one ship way ahead of the rest. It's Achilles, going in solo with just a handful of men to take the beach himself, which Agamemnon calls impossible. Achilles lands and fights like an absolute machine. The troops start chanting his name, and Agamemnon's face just drops. His advisor tells him to let Achilles have this small win and focus on winning the real war. But Agamemnon bitterly says he's given Achilles war after war where the king's name gets forgotten because it's always Achilles getting all the glory. Achilles and his crew go on to sack the temple of Apollo, killing the priests and capturing the women. At one point, Hector, with all his men already dead, comes face to face with Achilles. But Achilles spares him, saying, "The real fight's tomorrow, go home," and lets him go. Back at camp, Achilles finds a captured girl, told she was taken from Apollo's temple. Turns out she's Hector's cousin. She warns him Apollo will avenge his slaughtered priests. And Achilles casually asks what they're waiting for then. And she says the right moment. He tells her she's safe here, no need to be scared. Then word comes that Agamemnon wants him at a victory celebration. Once alone, Agamemnon mocks him, asking if he really thinks people will remember him. It's always the king people remember. Achilles fires back that the king was nowhere near that beach when they took it. Agamemnon taunts him about looting Apollo's temple, and Achilles generously offers him whatever he wants, calling it a gift, but Agamemnon says he's already taken something, and has his men bring out the very girl Achilles just promised to protect. Achilles warns them to let her go if they want to leave alive, but the girl herself speaks up, saying enough blood's already been spilled today and she doesn't want more spilled over her, which shuts Achilles up, stunned. Agamemnon mocks him for getting silenced by a girl, and taunts that she'll be bathing him tonight, and who knows what else. Achilles, furious, warns him he'll be sleeping the eternal sleep before he ever gets his shroud, then storms off. The next morning, Achilles tells his men they're sitting this battle out. On the battlefield, Hector and Paris face off against Agamemnon and his brother. Paris proposes a one-on-one duel between him and Menelaus, since the war's technically about Helen. Winner takes her, war's over. But Agamemnon refuses, since he's not here for his brother's wife, he's here for Troy. His brother pulls him aside, suggesting they let Paris get killed in the duel, then attack anyway, get Troy and revenge both. During the duel, right as Menelaus is about to kill Paris, Hector steps in and kills Menelaus instead. Agamemnon immediately declares war and attacks. Without Achilles, the Greek army struggles hard, big warriors start dropping, and the soldiers start feeling like there's no point fighting anymore since Helen's husband is already dead. That night at Agamemnon's camp, everyone agrees they can't win without Achilles, but Agamemnon refuses to ever call on him again. When asked about the girl, Agamemnon claims he never touched her and handed her to his soldiers, who are, at that very moment, assaulting her outside, until Achilles shows up, kills one of them, and brings her back to his tent. She asks him why he chose the warrior's life, and he says it wasn't really a choice. He was just born this way. She asks about Ares, god of war, who apparently drapes himself in the skins of the fallen, and Achilles shares a truth priests never tell. The gods envy us because we're not immortal. Any moment could be our last, and that mortality is exactly what makes everything beautiful, because this exact moment will never happen again for either of them. That night, she sneaks in with a knife to kill him, but Achilles, eyes closed, tells her to go ahead. She says if she doesn't, he'll keep killing more people, and he admits, yeah, he probably will. But she still doesn't kill him, and instead, something real starts growing between them. Achilles has now decided he's done fighting and plans to leave the next morning. But that same night, the Trojans, against Hector's orders and breaking the rules of engagement, launch a surprise attack. During this, Achilles' cousin, who loves him deeply and looks a lot like him, is so torn up watching his people get slaughtered while retreating that he secretly puts on Achilles' armor and sword and rallies the troops himself. Everyone thinks it's actually Achilles and gets pumped up, and since Achilles trained him personally, he fights almost exactly like him. He ends up facing Hector, who kills him, only realizing afterward it wasn't Achilles but his cousin, when another king there tells him. Devastated, Hector heads home and shows his wife a secret escape route just in case. When Achilles learns Hector killed his cousin, he goes absolutely feral with rage, and the next morning stands alone outside Troy's walls, challenging Hector directly. Hector comes out and proposes that whoever wins gives the loser's body proper respect. But Achilles says there's no deal between a lion and a man. They fight this massive, intense duel, easily the movie's best fight scene. And Hector dies. Achilles doesn't stop there, though. He ties Hector's body to his chariot and drags it back to camp. And the whole city goes into mourning since Hector was so beloved. That night, the king of Troy himself sneaks into Achilles' tent and begs to be allowed to give his son's body a proper burial like any warrior deserves. Achilles threatens to kill him right there. But the king calmly says a man who's already lost his son has nothing left to fear from death. And that breaks Achilles, who agrees to return Hector's body. They agree to a 12-day truce for mourning, during which Hector's cousin also shows up alive, shocking the king. And Achilles lets her go too without stopping her. This sends Agamemnon into a rage, furious they're wasting such a golden opportunity on a truce. But his advisor reminds him Troy's walls are still unbreakable even without Hector. Then a clever advisor comes up with an idea. Build a massive wooden horse, leave it on the beach, and clear out completely. 12 peaceful days pass, and when the Trojans finally step outside, there's no ships, no soldiers, just this giant wooden horse, and a pile of bodies that look like plague victims. They assume the gods punished the Greeks for desecrating Apollo's temple. Paris and his general want to torch the horse right there, but a priest stops them, insisting it's a peace offering to Poseidon that deserves to be honored in the temple, so they haul it inside the city. All of Troy erupts into celebration, thinking the 10-year war is finally over, completely unaware Agamemnon never actually left and has his entire fleet hidden nearby. As night falls, Achilles and his men sneak out of the horse, throw open Troy's gates, and Agamemnon's hidden army floods in and torches the entire city. Nobody's spared, kids, women, the elderly, all of it. And Agamemnon personally kills King Priam. Then he spots Hector's cousin, praying in front of a statue, grabs her from behind, saying something about testing her just like Achilles did, and she pulls a hidden knife and slashes his throat, dropping him dead on the spot. His 2 bodyguards move in to kill her. But Achilles gets there first and takes them both out, then goes to help her up. That's when Paris, Hector's younger brother, shows up, sees the scene from a distance, and fires an arrow that lands right in Achilles' heel, the one weak spot from the very beginning. And despite the unbearable pain, Achilles gets up and moves toward Paris with his sword. But Paris keeps firing, 3 or 4 more arrows, dropping Achilles to his knees. His cousin keeps trying to stop Paris, but he won't quit. Paris finally comes over and tells his sister, "Let's go." And the dying Achilles tells her to leave too, since Troy's about to be completely wiped out. She doesn't want to go, because they've fallen deeply for each other. But she's forced to leave anyway. Achilles dies right there, marking the end of a legendary warrior. And everyone around just freezes for a second, taking it in. In the end, they light Achilles' funeral pyre. And his love, Briseis, stands there watching the smoke rise into the sky. And that's where the movie ends.